save with Liberty Mutual. Shocking, right?
Dawn Power Wash Dish Spray. Spray, wipe, rinse. Dawn Power Wash. Get out. When my fiance and roommate get there, my mom only shows up to them to say that I don't think she or the baby made it, then leaves as my fiance starts to bawl his eyes out and have a breakdown, so she can go to the other side of the waiting area to, again, talk to family. My roommate had to go find a nurse to get the poor man a real update that we weren't in the all-time best of shape, but we weren't dead. My mom knew this. My son had been born 30 minutes earlier, and she'd seen him. Still to this day, bragging